Hey people, I'm going to show y'all how to read some of these hieroglyphs, the old and new language. And we're going to read this story of Captain Fresh and the legend of Astrodari. So this is written in the same language as the Hebrew Bible. It's the Boon language, and it was taught by thought, they say. You know, they say this monkey here represents thought. This is Babi. And Babi taught the Boon language. And that's what this here is. It's teaching the old and new language. See, thought came from Atlantis. And the story is that Atlantis sunk underwater. And he landed here in Egypt. And he created this language for the Egyptian people. And so the old language is red. You know, that's the atom. Means red. And so where he was from, the people were red. And all this language connected. So in order for the black people, he had to create a new language. And so that means old, and this means new. And so this is where your word baboon comes from. Babi and Boon. Baboon. And so most of it stayed the same, but some of it had to be changed. And some of it, they didn't want you to know what the word for was in the red, because they didn't have a new word for it. But there's clues that tell what this meant here. And so to give an idea how this Boon language works, this is the best one here. And this is represents the letter NB and represents the letter T. And this represents the letter NBT. And so what it means is in bet, and NBT, in bet, and in but, in bet and but. And so in bet and but means two things. You know, it means you're broke, you got nothing, and all you got is your butt to bet. And we still say that day, I bet my ass on it. And that's what it means, is a sure thing. If you're betting your butt, it's a sure thing. And so this is where this is coming from. From M-A-T, from at in, from at and bet and but. From at a sure thing the hour committing is. So I was reading in the Hebrew Bible, and I recognized a line of hieroglyphs in it that was worded of the hieroglyphs. So I come looking for it. I was going to do a movie for you, and I was going to match up them hieroglyphs to help you understand. And I come looking for the rabbit and the water and the Tayet. And I run into this, and I seen this might be a funner movie. But this is very common. This rabbit here is UN, and this is an N. And so the rabbit is when. The rabbit's the moon. It means to connect the cycle, when. And when an N follows it, that's a U and two N's. So the second N becomes the second vowel, E. E is in Y and uni. And this is where your word unison comes from. United, all that comes from the same old Egyptian word here, the uni. And so that's what you see here is UN. And it means when. And then down lower here you see the UR, the little bird means UR. It means where. And that's the two main things to know is when and where. And so when you look at this, you know, you first notice the two men standing here. This man, he's got a tail, you know, that means it's a tale, it's told, it's legend. And he's got a dabber. And TL, told, tale, and told of her. And wearing a hat, you know, a cover, a cap. And he's capped in, and this cap is called Fresh. He's Captain Fresh. And it looks like a tight-fitting hat, you know, something you would wrap up to keep it fresh. But it's where the word press and president come from. And so most of this I get from the sign list. And there's some that I dispute. I don't think they understand. And some of it I get from this Egyptian hieroglyph book. And some of it I've figured out by matching it to the Hebrew writings. And some of it I figure out by finding hieroglyphs that they don't know the meaning or they don't know the pronunciation. I'll find it mixed up in in different hieroglyphs and see where it's used, see how those words are pronounced with it, and I'll figure it out by that. And some of it just comes to me as the more I understand the language and I just know what fits. I'll tell you as I go over them. So this starts here with when. And many stories are started with this rabbit. Once upon a time. That's the when in once. Having to do with the time. You see it in Alice in Wonderland best. Really stretches out and explains it all. But Alice, that's the royal girl. Alice is you in the Hebrew. The royal girl is talking. The first thing it starts with is this rabbit looking at the watch in his pocket. Is how the story starts. When. Oh, it's when. And he takes off running. And so this is all going to go with the Egyptian, WNN, when. And then this is, they call the viper. But it's not V, it's F. F is what the viper says, And so the second N becomes an I. WNIF. And when if myrrh. This is, they'll give this a different meaning, but they'll tell you it's a stand holding water bottles. If you look at a 6-pack of water bottles, what do you call it? You call it water. It's the ancient word for water, the myrrh, the sea, where you get your word mariner and marry, mermaid. And then you read the KK underneath it. Double K means a KI or a CI, and that's mercy. And when if mercy take. When if mercy take, where of it. And so this is the obit. And you see the ankh. Sometimes it's drawn a little different. You can see it totally separated here. And this is the ova. OV, you see it in the feminine names. The Edda, and OV and T. This is a T. That's usually what the loaf of bread represents. Same thing as a T. It's a of it. And it's written like this because it's to let you know that this represents life and death, and when you die you have an obituary, and it talks about the life. Your obituary talks about the life to air, obituary, and so that's the meaning of life in here. And then NB, and so and where of it in B, where of it in B, and so when if mercy take, where of it in B. And then you have two eyes here. You have on and airy. And you see it on top of the Egyptian plaques with an or in the middle of it. And it's where your word on or airy comes from. And so this is the eye of on. And it means that it's looking at one certain thing. And it's pronounced A-N, on it. And where of it in B, on it. And then you have, this is a sin. And it's the hour hand on a clock, the short hand. They say it's an arrowhead representing sin, but it's not. It's a circumcised dick is what it is, because you see this arrowhead. Looks nothing like an arrowhead. Looks more like an uncircumcised dick to me. And don't confuse it with sim, because they're very similar. That's where that word comes from. And this is enter, NTR. And so this is reading SNN. SNN is SNI and TR. And on its senator. And this is a TH and the R. And they'll say this is a mouth. It's not. It's a vagina. It's R. And then the 3 dots represent the third vowel, which is U. And it means through. THRU. And then you have the NAMNN. Then the name in. And I believe this is the R here. And it's the name in her. And then you have this mark. You see the same mark in the Hebrew. And it means to read this backwards again. So the secret name is backwards here. When if mercy take, whereof it in, on its senator, through naming her. And then when you read it backwards, then it's R and ren, which is where your word children comes from, and also where the word rent comes from. It's the male part of parentage, where your word parent comes from. You'll see it here. Ren is part of the rush with leaves stripped off. And so when hieroglyphs are connected, you read it from the bottom up. So this is a ren, and this is a T or a D, either one. It's the loaf of bread, the tet, and the T and the D interchange. And so it's rend or rent. And here you got the D on the bottom, and another D on the side here. So it's D-R-I-N-D, drained. It's a toilet plunger. And then here it's in the vagina, and it's a R-R, so it's a R-I-I-N-D. And it's where your word grind come from. And this is a P down here. The square block is a P. And so this makes it apparent. And you'll see that in all the hieroglyphs meaning family. And on it, senator through naming her, ren men on, where the enter. That's what this means, enter, N-T-R. And enter sent on. The enter sent on. And so Captain Fresh, he's making an offering here. And you can tell it's a hot offering. He's got a handle on it. He's holding it back. He's got two different hands. It means he's not a homo. It means he's a homie. And you can see him putting the fire to it, and he's offering it. And so he's offering mercy here. And then this is, I'm going to give it 10. I think it means 10. It comes from the base of a backbone here. And it's got 10 heads on it. And it looks like the tree of knowledge to me. And so it represents tension. And tent is where that word comes from, the tense. And tense, if you're tense in your backbone. Oh, this would be the stuff to fix your tents. And so this is a tent frame. And this is where all the tension points where you tie down your tent at. And I think they went out of the way to put 10 points on here. So this is a 10. And the tense. And the tense of it. And the tense of it was in. And then you have mucha. M-H-U. Mucha. And they say this is the symbol of Lower Egypt. It takes much water to grow clumps of papyrus. And then the foot is B. And it's B-S and N-B. And so the much of, M-H-U-V, much of, and much of sin in. And intense. And this looks like the old patio letter for S. I give it the S. And tense of it. And tense, it's where you past tense, future tense comes from, has to do with language. And this S here is the pillar that holds the frame up, the middle of the tent. And so, a tent is also your frame of mind when it talks in the Hebrew about he went into the tent. And it's talking about what frame of mind you went into. And the tense of its, O-B-T-S, of its was, W-A-S, was in. And the tense of it was in much of sinning. They went into the tense where there's much of sin. And so this guy here, he's the same. He's got a tail and a dauber, T-L-D-V-R, told of her. And he's swinging this blade up here. And so this is a atra or a astra. And that's why I call him Astradavi. It's a generic term. And this is an Indian word. Anybody holding the astra is Astradari. And it's a supernatural weapon. It's up in the astras. Only the gods tote the supernatural weapons. And so it does all kind of different things, depending on who's toting the astra. So, this man has a tale and a dauber too, told of her, the legend. And he's wearing the cap of what if. well, what if I did this, and what if? And so, what if you smoked of the offering of mercy and you become the Astradari? And so, he's standing in a position of life. You see his two arms up, and it's the ancient letter E, meaning life, and it also means the. And so, if you're in the heavens, this is the Astradari, but if you're on earth and you're not in the fantasy land, you see that this is the, and it's just the atra, and it's theatra. Thea, that's where your word theater comes from. And he's Israel, he's playing his role. And then these over here, it looks like books bound to me. And then they're on a sled, so it makes me think, well, this is the whole library. And when you look at the top of it, you see the feather of moot. And you see two of them face one way and one the other way. And so you're reading two of the moots, moot, and then T, mooti, and then moot, moody moot. And so this is Book of the Dead. And that's what it says in Genesis 3. If you eat of the fruit, you'll be moody moot. You'll be surely dead. So told of her Captain Fresh offering, when if mercy take, where of it in be, on its senator through naming 'em her. The senator through name is the name of your representative. Ren men on where, ren men on where, ren it. And ren men on where the intercent on. And so if you've been watching my movies, you know the entire Hebrew Bible is about them sticking drugs in their ass. Tense of its was in much of sinning. And then this is the CH. The hand is the O. CHOT, shot. And shot. And then 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. FR. And shot 4. And then this is the R. And this is the R. So you got 3 R's. So you follow that R with a U. Just 1 R and a U. And shot for rumor. This is MR. And they use this MR to give it more meaning. The rumor. What kind of rumor? Well, this is a plow in between two vaginas. That kind of rumor. And shot rumor. This is a MR, and so this is the R, so this is reading as an I. And they shot the rumor it. And then this is a audit. What you should do, a audit. And what it is, it's the number 100 sitting on this line. It's a decimal point, the ought. Shot the rumor, it audit. And that's Boon language for something you should do, audit. So the Egyptologists at the British Museum got together and they wrote the tale of Peter Rabbit in hieroglyphs here. And I don't know how they read it, but that's how I read it, And when, if, this is the P or the F. And when, if, where's, and I call this a what because it looks like the door handle to me. So, what is the handle of anything? A handle is a name. And when, if, where's, what of a tune, T-U-N-N, is a T-U-N-I. And the tune is it, wherefore on ought. And when, if, where's, what a tune is it, wherefore on ought. When you ought to make a tune out of it, when you ought to make a poem out of it, what it says to me. And so this is what I was reading. It made me go looking for that. And this is going to tell why Samuel is the blind angel and also Satan. And this what made me think of it, the way this is spelled here. This is the rabbit when. And this is TT, so it's a tie. And then YAT, the Tayat. And when Tayat hears air, when the word gets to her, and she's going to be mad. So Tayat is here, and they'll say that this is a menstrual knot. It's an ancient tampon. And so when it sits beside the rabbit, the rabbit is the moon, and it's letting you know that it's the cycle of the month when Tayet hears air. And less me whoosum, a whoosum ye, and less me whoosum ye, and make less of y'all, and less me whoosum ye, the vecker time new over a sin. A vecker is a one-way arrow pointing out. But it also says, to less me whoosum a Jew, the Jew, the Jewocratoman. And that was the disliked political party, was the Jewocrat. And there's probably no such thing. This all had to do with stars and time and heaven. And people tried to take their position in the writings, not understanding them. And people do the same thing today, stuck in the fantasy world. They see something on TV and think it's true. But I'm going to get y'all one more hieroglyph before I go. It's in these symbols for housing. And it's this crown of Nephthys, normally portrayed as a young woman wearing a headdress in the shape of a house and a basket. And this is said to be Isis's sister, and her hat kind of looks opposite. So this basic shelter, you stand up 6 poles, one at every corner, one in the middle, and one center of this wall. And then you wrap your wall around. And that gives you an enclosed room. You put a top on that. If you're bunking with your buddy, you take that same and make an S out of it. So you each got a doorway. But if you're building a house, this is the basic for the house, the per. And when you close it in, you got an enclosure. And I believe this is just pronounced to close. And what you're looking at is the top view of a house. And you have a closet. That's where your word closet comes from. Everything that you don't need, you put away in the closet. And you see it with this T on there. It was just a close, and now it's a closet. The closet. And things that belong in the closet are what closet. And then her crown has the NB on top of it. And it's the closet in B. And that means that nobody knew about her. She was in a closet. Isis had the run of the rest of the house, and that was her symbol, was the knot of Tayet. And when Tayet hears air, lessum whoosum Jewocratum in knew of her was in. Alright, I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.